Mom, what are you thinking? What family trip? That's ridiculous, Tima exclaimed, clearly frustrated with his mother's suggestion. Tima, son, what's wrong with spending time together? You and Lenachka will be together. A little cruise, just 5 days. On the Volga, his mother responded, trying to reason with him. Mama, I told you I'm marrying Lena. It'll be just the way you want it. I even agreed to this idiotic wedding with lots of guests. And I have to live with your Lena for the rest of my life. Please don't make me spend time with her now. Let me enjoy my freedom. The wedding is only a month and a half away, Tima pleaded, feeling trapped and overwhelmed. Timothy, I've already bought the tickets. We're going. Tima's father intervened in the conversation, his voice firm. It's out of the question. It's a big boat. You can do whatever you want there. But I strongly recommend that you spend at least a couple of hours a day with your wife-to-be. Whatever you say, Timothy waved his hand hopelessly and left the room, unable to muster any further objections. Ever since his girlfriend Nastya died the year before last, Timothy had been struggling to find closure. The pain of losing his beloved was still raw, and even the circumstances surrounding her death were shrouded in ambiguity. Nastya had passed away in a nightclub where, according to her friends, she had met another man and allegedly cheated on Timothy. Tragically, when a fire broke out in the club, Nastya and her new companion were too intoxicated to escape the blaze. Timothy's heartache and confusion lingered, making it difficult for him to move forward. The prospect of spending time with Lena, his future wife, only intensified his emotional turmoil. The upcoming wedding, arranged to please his mother, loomed ahead, adding pressure to an already burdened soul. As he navigated through this turbulent period, Timothy yearned for solace and a chance to heal, hoping that time would eventually mend his wounded heart. The parents did their best to support Timothy during his difficult time. They tried to keep him engaged in various activities, but he often distanced himself and threw himself into work, which turned out to have a positive impact on his career. While they were proud of his professional accomplishments, their ultimate desire was to see their son genuinely happy again. The idea of Timothy marrying the daughter of their friends emerged spontaneously, initially as a joke. However, it soon took on a life of its own, with endless introductions and dinners involving one girl after another. Timothy didn't feel a connection with any of them, but somehow Lenachka stood out from the rest. She was the only girl who didn't reject him outright to her parents after meeting him. This fact alone played a role in the decision-making process. At first, Timothy vehemently protested against the wedding, feeling indifferent towards Lenachka. But as time passed, he simply accepted it, convincing himself that she wasn't the worst option. On one hand, he found solace in her quiet and compliant nature, as it didn't demand much from him. On the other hand, her apparent indifference and lack of opinion on the matter frightened him. She hadn't uttered a single word, neither in favor nor against the wedding. Only her parents seemed involved in the preparations for the event, while the bride and groom themselves remained disinterested in the details of their own wedding. Even when asked about the wedding dress, Lena's response was a mere shrug of her shoulders, leaving Timothy perplexed and frustrated. She showed no initiative to meet him, talk, or establish any sort of connection. Timothy couldn't comprehend why she agreed to the marriage in the first place. He sometimes wondered if she was simply too lazy to engage, or if she harbored deep-seated fears. And now, there they were, on this family vacation. Timothy couldn't help but wonder what Lena's reaction would be. Would she, as usual, just shrug her shoulders? He couldn't shake off the feeling of her constant indifference. Regardless of Timothy's reluctance, a week later he found himself standing on board the motor ship, watching the shoreline recede into the distance. Surprisingly, the voyage turned out to be not so bad. The communication facilities were excellent, allowing Timothy to stay connected with his laptop and phone. He spent most of his time on deck, engrossed in work and the digital world, finding solace in the familiarity of his devices. But the parents were determined not to give up on Timothy and Lenotchka. On the first day of the trip, they sought out Timothy and insisted that he take Lenotchka for a walk on the boat. Understanding that this conversation would likely prolong the process, Timothy reluctantly agreed. Lenotchka and her parents were also on the deck, with the girl engrossed in her book. When they informed her that it was time for a walk, she silently closed her book and stood up. "Where would you like to go?" Timothy asked, trying to initiate a conversation. Once again, Lenotchka only shrugged her shoulders. "Well, let's walk here then," Timothy suggested, gesturing to the wide deck. Lenotchka responded with another silent shrug. They proceeded to walk in silence, Timothy acutely aware of his parents' expectant gaze burning into his back. Suddenly, Lenotchka broke the silence, her voice surprisingly melodic. "Timothy," she spoke softly, "could we go down to the lower deck?" Timothy, not particularly enjoying his parents' attention himself, saw no reason to object. He looked at Lenotchka with surprise as she found an empty bench on the lower deck. "We can sit here," she said, her tone calm. "I won't disturb your work." Timothy was taken aback by her consideration. As they settled on the bench, Timothy mustered the courage to ask Lenotchka a question that had been nagging at him. "Lena," he began hesitantly, "may I ask you something? It's about the wedding. Why you always remain silent? Are you truly okay with it?" Once again, Lenotchka responded with a quiet shrug. "I don't mind," she admitted. "I was genuinely surprised that you agreed." Timothy was taken aback by her honesty and openness. In that moment, he realized that there was more to Lenotchka than met the eye. Perhaps there was a hidden depth to her quiet demeanor, and he was eager to explore it further. "You know my situation. I still love Nastya. My parents are pressuring me. I don't have the strength or desire to fall in love again. So basically, I don't care who I marry. I'm sorry." Timothy poured out his heart, revealing the inner turmoil that had been plaguing him. To his surprise, Helena smiled slightly in response. "It's okay," she said calmly. "That works for me." Timothy's astonishment knew no bounds. He struggled to comprehend her reaction. "Suitable?" he questioned, searching for clarity. "Yes," Lena agreed, her tone unwavering. "Don't worry, I won't bother you once we're married. I can take care of myself. I can cook, and I make enough money." With each passing moment, Timothy grew more and more surprised. But why? He couldn't help but ask. You could find true love. You could have a genuine marriage. Lena shook her head gently. "No," she replied, her voice filled with a resolute certainty. "I don't believe that's in the cards for me." But she smiled once again, a hint of contentment in her expression. "As I said, I'm fine with it." Timothy was taken aback by Helena's acceptance of their circumstances. He couldn't fathom the depth of her perspective, the reasons behind her willingness to enter into a marriage devoid of love. Yet, a sense of gratitude began to stir within him, recognizing that perhaps in Lena's presence, he could find a sense of stability and companionship, even if it fell short of the passionate love he once had. The following day, the parents once again orchestrated a walk for Lena and Timothy. They made their way to the lower deck and found a secluded corner. Lena quietly took out a book, and Timothy busied himself with work. An hour passed, and their silence remained unbroken. Yet, amidst the absence of words, Timothy noticed a growing sense of comfort in Lena's presence. "Lena, I was thinking of going to the bar to get something to drink. Would you like anything?" Timothy finally broke the silence, his voice gentle. Lena tore her gaze away from the book and nodded. "Yes, please," she replied softly. "A bottle of water." She handed Timothy a bill of money. Timothy examined the money carefully and then shook his head. "Lena," he said calmly, "I'll buy you the water. And I believe we should discuss some details of our marriage." "Okay," Lena agreed, her response equally calm. After a few minutes, Timothy returned with a bottle of water in hand and sat down next to Lena. He handed her the bottle and then spoke earnestly, looking into her eyes. When you mentioned being able to support yourself, Lena, I'm your future husband. You don't have to pay for everything. I plan on taking care of buying groceries, giving you gifts. As Timothy shared his thoughts, Lena's expression softened. She listened intently, absorbing his words. In that moment, a spark of understanding flickered between them, bridging the gap that had previously held them at a distance. All right, the girl obediently agreed. Then I'll give you presents too. Timothy couldn't help but smile slightly at her response. Why are you always so easygoing? He inquired, genuinely curious. It's just my character, Lena replied simply. Timothy's curiosity got the better of him as he probed further. Are you still not going to tell me anything? Lena, are you afraid? A sad smile graced Lena's lips. There really is no secret, she answered softly. Please don't think that there's something hidden that you can uncover, and I will suddenly become like everyone else. It's just my temperament. I've always been quiet since childhood, and I enjoy being alone. Timothy found her response both intriguing and enigmatic. I don't quite believe you, he admitted, a note of playful skepticism in his voice. But you're entitled to your secrets. As the days went by, Lena's enigmatic nature continued to captivate Timothy. On the third day, he took the initiative and invited her for a walk himself. Even though silence prevailed for the majority of their time together, Timothy felt an indescribable happiness in simply being in Lena's presence. There was a growing sense of comfort and acceptance, as if they were slowly unraveling the depths of each other's souls without the need for words. Timothy left Lena sitting on the bench and made his way to the bar to fetch their drinks. Upon his return, he noticed that Lena was engaged in a phone conversation. Intrigued, he quietly approached, his curiosity getting the better of him. He couldn't help but overhear her speaking with unexpected emotion. No, Lena stated firmly, her voice resolute. We do not agree to that. I insist on the initial option. You promised delivery tomorrow, in full. We expect you to fulfill that commitment. Explore other possibilities. As Lena ended the call, Timothy approached her with concern etched on his face. Is everything all right? He inquired, genuinely worried. Yes, Lena replied, her demeanor once again closed off and unaffected. It was work-related. There are some challenges, but it will be fine. Curiosity piqued, Timothy couldn't resist asking, and where do you work? To his complete surprise, a radiant smile spread across Lena's face. At the charity center, she revealed, a hint of pride in her voice. Timothy's astonishment grew as he considered the contrast between Lena's reserved nature and her involvement in such a noble pursuit. He felt a newfound admiration for her, intrigued by the depth and complexities that lay beneath her quiet exterior. And it seems that you love your work, Timothy remarked, genuinely intrigued. Very much, Lena admitted, a spark of passion igniting in her eyes. I feel like I'm making a meaningful impact, like my work truly matters. It gives me a sense of purpose in this world. Timothy couldn't help but delve deeper into her perspective. And during the rest of your time, do you feel like you shouldn't live? Lena's smile turned bittersweet. Are you still searching for my secret? She questioned playfully. Timothy nodded earnestly. I am, he confessed. But I believe it would be fair if I shared my secret with you as well. I genuinely like you. I feel a sense of comfort when I'm around you. I want to get to know you better. I believe we have the potential for a real and fulfilling family if we both desire it. Lena's expression wavered between surprise and cautious hope. Just yesterday, you told me that your heart had no space for anyone but Nastya, and now you hint that there might be feelings for me, she pointed out. We often make mistakes, Lena, Timothy responded thoughtfully. Lena made a request, her tone gentle. Please, don't call me that. I despise that name. I apologize, Timothy said sincerely. I won't use it again, but the truth is, I've carried Nastya in my thoughts every single day since her passing. Yet now, I haven't thought about her in days. I don't want to set unrealistic expectations, but perhaps we can find a way to make this work." Lena muttered something under her breath, her voice tinged with frustration. Timothy, puzzled, asked, "What did you mean?" Quickly retracting her words, Lena replied, "Nothing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. And you and Nastya were good friends," Timothy suddenly recalled. "You know the truth, don't you?" The girl's eyes widened, and she vigorously shook her head. "I don't know anything," she protested. Timothy remained persistent. "I believe you do," he insisted, "but you're choosing not to tell me to avoid causing me distress." Elena retreated into her quiet demeanor once again, causing Timothy to let out a frustrated sigh. It seemed that Lena would close herself off, leaving him in the dark. However, she surprised him with her response. "I know," she finally confessed. "But Nastya's been gone for 1.5 years, and it's in the past. If you want to delve into it, I'll tell you. However, I genuinely don't believe it would benefit you, and I don't think it will improve things between us." Curiosity piqued, Timothy pressed further. "Why not? Is there something you're involved in?" Lena responded with a silent shrug, leaving Timothy with more questions than answers. "Len," Timothy implored, gazing at the girl intently. "If you were in my shoes, would you want to know the truth?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine vulnerability. "Perhaps, initially, I would want to know," Lena contemplated, her expression tinged with sadness. "But right now, I would give anything to remain oblivious." Timothy's eyes pleaded with her. "Lena, please," he begged, his voice filled with desperation. "No," Lena abruptly stood up. "I'm exhausted. I want to go to my room." "Lena, just imagine how I've been living every single day for 1.5 years. Timothy pleaded, his voice quivering with emotional strain. "I wake up every morning with questions haunting me. Why did she go to that club? Who was that man? I go to sleep at night tormented by the feeling of my own guilt and the possibility that I did something wrong. I'm tired, Lena. If you have the answers to my questions, I'm willing to do anything to obtain them. I swear to you that knowing the truth won't change anything between us." Timothy's words hung in the air, his heart pounding with anticipation for Lena's response. "It will," the girl responded firmly. "It will change everything." But she hesitated, her voice filled with a mix of resignation and concern. "That's not what truly matters. You think that knowing the truth about whether Nastya cheated on you or not will bring you solace and ease your pain. But it won't. If it's so crucial for you to know, then yes, she did cheat on you. Whether it was with that specific guy or not, I don't have that information. I know nothing about him. But did knowing this make you feel any better?" Timothy's heart sank as he confessed, "No, it didn't. If anything, it made it worse." "That's exactly what I'm trying to convey," Lena replied, her voice tinged with empathy. "The truth, in itself, doesn't provide the comfort you seek. It doesn't heal the wounds. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go to my room." With that, Lena swiftly departed, leaving Timothy to grapple with his thoughts. The remainder of the day was spent in solitude for Timothy. His mind was filled with contemplation. Surprisingly, the revelation of Nastya's infidelity didn't cause as much pain as he had anticipated. Perhaps over the past 1.5 years, he had gradually grown accustomed to the idea. However, another concern loomed over him. If Lena knew about Nastya's betrayal, who else was aware? Did all of his friends know and choose to conceal the truth from him? These questions gnawed at his mind, stirring a mix of uncertainty and apprehension. Elena's expectation for him to know the truth seemed unreasonable. After all, they had limited communication and barely knew each other at that time. Furthermore, Lena was known for her reserved nature and her minimal interactions with others. However, Timothy couldn't help but wonder if Lena had confided in anyone about the secret. They shared several mutual acquaintances, including Timothy's best friend, who often engaged in conversations with Nastya. Did he know the truth as well? These thoughts consumed Timothy's mind as he contemplated Lena's character. Involuntarily, Timothy found himself admiring Lena, a fragile yet remarkably resilient girl. She had expressed her wish to remain oblivious to the truth, but she had faced the burden of knowledge with dignity. Timothy yearned to discover whether Lena had ever shared this secret with anyone. Somehow, he was convinced that she hadn't. Unable to find solace in sleep, Timothy's restlessness grew. Finally, in the depths of the night, he succumbed to his curiosity and knocked on Lena's cabin door. The startled girl opened the door slightly, her eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and concern. "What's happened?" she inquired, her voice filled with caution. Timothy immediately sensed that Lena, too, had been unable to find peace in sleep. Her red and teary eyes revealed her unrest. Determined to engage in a different conversation, he expressed his desire to talk. "We've discussed everything about Nastya and the past this afternoon," Lena responded, her tone cautious. "I don't want to talk about Nastya or the past anymore. I want to talk about you," Timothy asserted. "Please, let me in. We'll just talk." Lena hesitated for a moment before stepping back and allowing him entry. Timothy settled himself in one of the chairs while Lena perched on the edge of the bed, maintaining a noticeable distance between them. Her efforts to keep a barrier were not lost on Timothy. "What did you want to know?" she asked, her voice soft and reserved. Timothy's determination grew stronger as he confronted Lena about her secret. He implored her not to deny it any longer, stating that he was now certain she was hiding something. He pressed her further, asking if she had ever confided in anyone. Tears streamed down Lena's face as she sobbed in response. "No," she managed to say between her sobs. "I never told anyone, not to anyone. She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed by emotion. Timothy's heart ached for her, and he moved closer to the bed, cautiously avoiding physical contact. Lena, please don't cry," he pleaded, taking hold of her trembling hands. "Please, don't cry. Tell me everything. Don't worry about me or the consequences. For your own sake, just let it out." Lena's response was filled with anguish. "I can't," she replied. "I just can't. You have no idea how everything will change." With unwavering sincerity, Timothy made a solemn promise. "Lena, I swear that whatever you tell me will remain within the walls of this room forever. Regardless of how I feel or how much it hurts, I promise I won't do anything. I just want to alleviate some of your pain. Keeping this mystery to yourself will only break you further. You need to confide in someone." Lena sobbed, acknowledging his words with a nod. "I'm sorry," she managed to say. "I warned you." "You did," Timothy acknowledged, his voice filled with understanding and empathy. Lena mustered the courage to share her painful story with Timothy. She began by describing her close friendship with Nastya, their shared experiences, and the trust they had built. But as she reached the 11th grade, Lena started noticing peculiar behavior from her friend. Nastya would always prefer to stay at Lena's house instead of inviting her over, claiming that her parents were having problems. Lena found it strange, but believed Nastya because why would her friend lie? Lena's voice quivered as she continued, taking a deep breath and wiping away her tears. Then, one day she continued, her voice shaking, "I woke up in the middle of the night, and Nastya was nowhere to be found. I searched for her, and that's when I found her, in my parents' bed, next to my father." Lena paused, overcome with emotion. Timothy listened attentively, his heart heavy with sympathy. He wanted to ask a difficult question, but the words wouldn't come out. Lena shook her head, answering the unspoken question. "No," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It wasn't like that. But it was still devastating. I screamed and they woke up. My father forcefully grabbed me by the hair and dragged me into the kitchen. We had a long conversation. He threatened me, saying he would throw me out onto the street if I told anyone. He even threatened to turn my own mother against me. I can't recall everything he said that night, but I remember the overwhelming horror I felt. I was terrified, and I believed every word he said. Lena's voice trembled as she recounted the nightmare that followed. Whenever her mother went on business trips, Nastya would come to their house, and they would no longer hide their relationship. They would go into Lena's parents' bedroom, leaving her to lock herself in her own room, consumed by tears and anguish. Timothy muttered in disbelief, struggling to process the enormity of Lena's revelation. "God, Lena," he uttered, his voice filled with a mix of shock and sorrow. "Even in my wildest fantasies, I couldn't have imagined such a thing. How did you cope?" Lena's response was filled with a somber honesty. "I don't think I ever truly coped," she admitted, her voice filled with vulnerability. "I'm still afraid of him, and I hate him." Timothy listened intently, wanting to understand the full extent of Lena's painful journey. He gathered his courage and asked, "How long did it last?" Lena took a moment to collect herself before responding. "Fortunately, if I may say so, it didn't last very long," she replied. Nastya became pregnant, but she didn't reveal the identity of the father to her parents. They believed she was going into labor, and while it wasn't too noticeable, they took her to another city. "My father was relieved. It seemed like he had grown tired of her." Lena trailed off, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and resignation. Interrupting the heavy silence, Timothy inquired, "What happened next?" Lena's eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know," she admitted softly. "The school year ended, and Nastya never returned. I went to university in a different city, deliberately choosing to distance myself from my father. I found a job there, and I had no intention of going back home. But circumstances changed. I lost my job, got laid off, and I couldn't find a new one in time. My mother started expressing how much she missed me, so I reluctantly returned home." She paused, her voice trembling with a mixture of regret and vulnerability. "I'm sorry," Lena apologized. "I don't usually show my emotions, but with him around, I feel like I shut down. I become paralyzed, unable to utter a single word. I see myself as that scared 16-year-old girl being intimidated by her father in the kitchen." Timothy reached out and gently placed a hand on Lena's shoulder, offering her a comforting presence in that moment of shared pain. Timothy's admiration for Lena's strength grew as he listened to her story. He couldn't help but express his thoughts. "No wonder you're so strong. I believe any other girl in your position would have been driven to the brink of madness." Lena let out a sigh, her voice laden with a mix of vulnerability and self-doubt. "I don't know. Sometimes I even question my sanity," she confessed. "My father treats me as if nothing ever happened. He calls me Lenatka, and it's in those moments that I start questioning if I fabricated it all in my mind." Curiosity tinged with concern took hold of Timothy, but Nastya eventually returned. "Do you know when and how it happened? And why?" Lena shook her head, her expression filled with uncertainty. "I don't know," she replied softly. "I was away at the time, intentionally trying to put her out of my mind. I never thought to ask my parents about her either. The first time I saw her again was with you. It was during that dinner when you all came over. You probably don't remember." A somber expression crossed Timothy's face as he recalled that fateful night. "No," he shook his head. "I remember that evening vividly. You rushed out of the room as if you had seen a ghost. Now, knowing what you've been through, it all makes sense." Lena nodded, her eyes filled with sadness and understanding, as they both acknowledged the impact of their shared past on their present lives. "And what about the child?" Timothy inquired anxiously. "What happened to him?" "Asterisk, she gave him up for adoption," Lena replied. "She mentioned that it was a boy. She didn't have much information about him, and she didn't keep track of his life." Asterisk, Glenn, how do you know all this? Have you been in contact with her? How did you find out about her infidelity? Asterisk, Timothy, maybe it's best not to delve further. Lena hesitated. "I've already shared so much with you." Glenn, remember the promise I made. I will keep my word and remain silent. I won't take any action. Just tell me, please. Elena nodded reluctantly. When she returned, I found myself entangled in a nightmarish game. Nastya wanted to reconnect with her father, but he refused her, so they both decided to use me. I believe he initially rejected her directly, but when she didn't comprehend his rejection, my father chose to involve me. But why did he involve you? Timothy asked, his voice filled with confusion and concern. How did you agree to that? Timothy asked, his voice filled with disbelief. It was my usual lack of willpower, Lena replied with a sad smile. I work for a charitable organization, as I mentioned before. Timothy nodded, recalling their previous conversation. My work is everything to me. It's my purpose in life. But my father used his connections to manipulate me into helping him with Nastya. He involved a friend of his who had influence within the organization. This friend threatened that I would lose my job if I didn't comply. So I had no choice but to talk to Nastya multiple times and convince her that my father wanted nothing to do with her. In return, she caused all sorts of trouble and regularly shared the names of her new partners, thinking it would make my father jealous, but he was merely amused. And as for me, Lena's voice trailed off as she lowered her head. I've always carried an immense burden of guilt towards you. I should have told you everything. Nastya had no right to use you in this way. That's why I agreed to marry you so quickly. I feel responsible for what happened, but I believe that you can still find happiness and meet the person you truly love. While you heal your wounds, I will be by your side, trying my best to support and help you. And then, I will leave. Timothy listened to her words, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside him. Lena, Timothy gently squeezed her hands. I don't want anyone else but you. You are an incredible person, courageous, caring, and deeply sensitive. I want to be there for you, to protect you and provide a safe haven. I believe that as we get to know each other better, we can truly develop a profound love for one another. Lena shook her head, her eyes filled with doubt. I don't believe in love. I feel incapable of experiencing that emotion. My father took away the most essential part of me. He stripped away my faith. I'm just a mere shadow of a real person. Lena, do you believe in me? Timothy asked earnestly. Lena hesitated, searching his eyes for sincerity. I do, she finally whispered. Then we will succeed, Timothy declared with determination. Of course, you need support and assistance. Together, we will overcome all the challenges. The cruise ends in 2 days, and you'll move in with me immediately. I don't want you to live close to your father. Timothy, but no buts. You'll have your own space, and I won't rush you. Our relationship will progress at a pace that feels comfortable for you. We'll find a therapist for you, and if, at any point, you decide you need someone else in your life, I promise I won't stand in your way, but I am determined to do everything within my power to make you love me. Timothy, I'm not deserving of you. Lena, you deserve the absolute best, Timothy interrupted gently but firmly. Look at me and just say that you agree to move in with me. Lena gazed into his eyes, her heart fluttering with a mix of apprehension and hope. I agree, she said softly, never breaking their connection. Elena stood before the mirror, her gaze fixed on her reflection. This was not the vision she had ever entertained for her wedding day. In fact, she had often believed that she would never marry at all. And even in her wildest dreams, she could never have fathomed marrying the man she truly loved. Following the conclusion of their cruise, Lena promptly moved in with Timothy. However, a hasty and quiet wedding was not within their grasp. To their surprise, as soon as their parents discovered their intention to marry, they insisted on postponing the wedding by another 2 months. They deemed it necessary to meticulously prepare and organize every aspect of the occasion. Initially, Timothy tried to reason with his parents, seeking to persuade them otherwise. Yet, Lena calmly expressed her willingness to comply with their wishes. If it held importance for their parents, she was prepared to endure any kind of wedding. Timothy eventually relented, realizing that the postponement had its merits. They would now have ample time to truly understand one another, and their wedding could transform into a momentous celebration rather than a mere formality. Timothy savored the pleasantness of living with Lena. Their home radiated a newfound warmth and coziness. Whenever she wasn't delayed at work, she made sure to prepare delicious dinners for him. They embarked on leisurely walks, engaged in heartfelt conversations, and shared delightful movie nights. They even managed to escape to nature on a few occasions, deepening their bond beyond mere acquaintance. A knock echoed at the door, causing Lena to release a relieved sigh as she opened it. Timothy stood before her, his eyes shielded by his hand. "If you believe in omens," he uttered, "I'd rather not look." "Tima," Lena gently tugged at his hand, "you know very well that I don't believe in omens. Whether you see me now or in 5 minutes, it makes no difference." Timothy withdrew his hand. Well, all right," he murmured. "What have we? Lena, you look absolutely stunning. You're radiant, simply breathtaking." She let out a tremulous sigh and clasped his hands tightly. "You're not helping," she whispered. "What's the matter? You're not helping," he whispered back. "I'm just nervous," she confessed. "I don't think I can step out there." Timothy drew her closer, wrapping his arms around her. "Lena, have you changed your mind about marrying me?" "Of course not. It's not about you. It's just that there will be so many people out there." "What if? Everything will go smoothly, Lena, I promise. I'll be right there by your side the whole time. I swear, at the first chance we get, we'll sneak away together." "Okay," Elena agreed. "Just promise me you won't leave me alone for too long." "I will never leave you alone. I love you." "I love you too," she replied. "And Tima, I keep thinking that maybe I should tell my mother everything." "Lena, my love, if you decide to tell your mother, I'll be right there with you, supporting you every step of the way. But let's not dwell on it now. We can discuss it another time." She smiled and nodded. "I'm sorry. I just can't help but have all these thoughts racing through my mind." "They will come to pass soon enough. They will be looking for both of us. Are you feeling all right?" "Yes, I'm calm." Then, he gently kissed his bride. "I'll see you in a few minutes." Timothy left the room and almost immediately encountered his friends. Well, Grisha patted him on the shoulder. "Your fiance's friends didn't come up with anything creative at all. So take your beloved and let's go get married." Timothy's face lit up with a wide smile as he opened the door to the room again. "I promised," he said to a surprised Lena, "that we would meet quickly. Let's all go. It's time for you to become my wife." "Let's go," she replied, extending her hand. The next 6 hours flew by in a blur, yet time seemed to stretch endlessly. Timothy kept his word and remained by Lena's side throughout the celebration. They received endless congratulations, kissed, danced, and wore constant smiles. Glenn, Timothy leaned toward the girl. "I'll just be gone for a couple of minutes. I need to have a word with Grisha." All right, Lena replied absent-mindedly. Fatigue was starting to take its toll, and she longed to go home. Timothy had a brief conversation with his friend before returning to his bride. "Dance with Grisha," he instructed. Lena looked at Timothy with surprise. "In a few minutes, it will all make sense," he assured her. Grigory approached them immediately and asked the bride for a dance. Lena graciously offered her hand, and they glided onto the dance floor. But as they twirled, Lena sensed that Grigory was subtly leading her away. She looked at him with surprise. "Yes, he whispered. "We're making our escape." Let's not attract too much attention. They slipped out of the restaurant, finding solace in the empty courtyard. Turning a corner, Lena couldn't contain her joy and threw herself into her husband's arms. Asterisk, can we leave now? She asked, beaming. Asterisk, we can, Timothy replied, opening the car door. Grigory will take care of everything here. Asterisk, poor me, Grigory groaned. Asterisk, you always love being the center of attention, Timothy smirked. Thank you so much. He hugged his friend before stepping into the car. Asterisk, well, he said, turning to his wife. Shall we go home, change clothes, and head to the airport? I've rearranged our tickets. We're leaving early. Asterisk, you're the best. Lena embraced him tightly.